Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. At FIT, we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. And we always invite all opposing views. Welcome to another edition of FIT TV. Calculating child support is not usually based on time with the kids. It is how much money is available. While in turmoil, we are asked to lock in income levels that deprive us of our future. It is difficult to get child support modified downward and is often necessary. So if there's a cost of living change or a change of circumstances when income may not be available, you are trapped. The system creates a debt ledger and government as daddy takes your place. Most states have interest on the debts from child support and are advantaged by someone being in debt. It should be obvious the needs of the children are not included in these steps. The state takes them. It's keeping them in business, not you. Okay, I have with me to discuss the child support situation in America today, and this is Gary Jacobs, Americans for Legal Reform President and Family Law Reformer. To get this program started, Divorce Corp has a great little segment on child support. I'm going to introduce that now. So, Andy, roll the clip, and we'll look at the next 2 minutes and come back after it's done.
Attorneys get paid by the hour. The more accusations they make towards the other side, the more things they ask you to send them, the more papers they file with the courthouse, the more they earn, and the more it costs you.
Lawyers handle cases in a fairly similar fashion. They set an hourly rate, take a retainer, and then bill hourly against that retainer, and then create bills from the hours that they spent later on.
I only know really of one other firm in my area that does a flat fee. Everybody else is hourly. If a judge is late and you're sitting there for 3 hours, that client's getting billed for those 3 hours. I start to feel bad for them.
I have to work 25 hours to pay for 1 hour of an attorney's time. 25 to 1.
And there are no limits. When attorneys get started, they have no incentive to stop until you run out of money.
If your case is taking years and years, then that means some attorneys just putting in a lot of frivolous motions to delay the case.
In the 60s, it'd take a few months, a year. Now cases drag on 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Which is extremely expensive, as you can imagine.
You have lawyers who are in it for the money, who are greedy, who will milk a case.
The attorneys definitely don't want to settle the cases because once they do, their income stream has been cut off.
A lot of people go into debt as a result of their divorces.
Some attorneys automatically put a lien on your house just to make sure that eventually they get paid. We took out an equity line of credit at my parents' house, and that's been maxed out now. I think it's $250,000. What they do is bleed you until all the money is gone.
Since flat fee divorces can be finished quicker and cheaper, why is it that only a handful of lawyers do them?
So, Gary, based on some of these things we just saw on the tape, child support is a business, and government has a way of feeding money back into it. Do you feel like this is something that you wish you would have known when you were involved in it? Right. Wouldn't it have helped?
Yeah, I mean, for my case, it's a little bit different because I didn't pay child support because I didn't lose custody of my children. But being an advocate and president of Americans for Legal Reform, I deal with this every day of the week. People calling me with problems with child support, and like you said, they had no idea what they were getting into. You think, listen, child support sounds great. Who doesn't want to support their child, right? But that's really far from what child support really is. We'll discuss that. But child support has very little to do with the needs of the child, although it sounds good. Yeah. It really has very little to
it's to a narrative that carries the nation, the old deadbeat dad.
Deadbeat, right.
Yeah, and so everybody has this feeling like, well, if there's somebody that owes child support, they are deadbeat.
Right.
So owing money, even if you're paying money, you get to be a child support payer. Which, if you think about it, is kind of broad-based. Why you might be a deadbeat if you're late.
Right.
You might be a deadbeat.
That's a good point. In fact, you and I, and you've had him as a guest on your show, is Dr. Rivera, who paid his ex-wife approximately $400,000 over a 4-year period. and was labeled a deadbeat dad and actually went to jail
Right.
for falling behind on his child support.
Right.
Now, listen, if you can't live on $100,000 a year in child support, guess what? His ex-wife should go to jail. Something wrong with you. So
why don't you give that example you talked about a little bit before the show regarding the why are we doing such drastic numbers for certain people and other people less?
Well, my feeling has always been on child support. Listen, children need to be taken care of, but first of all, it's human instinct for men and women to want to take care of their child. So I would actually say that even if there was no award of child support, if a father or mother is seeing their children having a relationship with their child, they are going to make sure that their children's needs are met. What really disturbs me is that it's calculated on a percentage of earned income. So, for example, if somebody makes $1 million a year, they may pay $100,000 in child support. If somebody makes $50,000 a year, they may only pay $100 a week. Well, it costs the same thing to feed a child. If it's actual support, it costs the same thing to feed a child,
Right.
whether the parent makes $10 million a year or whether they make $20,000. Actually, if they make nothing, you still need to feed the child. It costs money. So to me, it should be okay. In Suffolk County, Long Island, we calculate that it costs $100 a week. I'm just coming up with a number. I don't know what the real number to feed a child. And if there's child support, and then that's the number, but it should be split 50-50 because both parents should take responsibility, and it should be then $50 a week for the person, for the person who doesn't have the custody of the child. But there should be no incentive, in my opinion, for making more money.
The magic word. It's incentive. It's
incentive.
based. Yeah.
And listen, you know what? There's been many studies shown that children of rich parents are no more happy than children of average means family. So there's no correlation between the best interest of the child and having more money. In fact, in many cases, people that have more money, the children have more problems.
Sure.
So the correlation the facts don't even make sense.
Yeah, did you ever think about the fact that because of all this money involved in the system, that the money has to go somewhere? I know a lot of people receive child support payments. The receivers complain, you know what, I didn't get it again.
Right.
It wasn't there on time. Apparently, the agencies are holding back some of this money. Some of this was tracked and some of it is true. And the Child Support Enforcement Bureau is collecting money and holding money in a float.
Right.
Not all the time. I don't really know the
Well,
extent, but we know that it happens.
There's always a lag, even if it's a 2-week lag. But if you don't have hundreds of thousands, you have millions of dollars being held in that lag, collecting interest. Plus, they charge a service fee. Listen, make no mistake about it. These judges do not give a shit about your kid. It's about money, money, money. It's all it is. It's a money maker. And I think you were talking about before the show that you were discussing the title for the funding, which is a very confusing thing. And I've tried to explain it to politicians, and they don't understand it. But guess what? It's designed that way.
Right.
They don't want anybody to understand
Right.
it. But the fact of the matter is, for every dollar the state gets somebody to pay in child support, they get
Matching funds.
I think it's more than that. Than equal.
Oh, is it more? I thought it was at least matching funds.
But like you said, it's all over. But one thing that I know for a fact, there's more incentive to put somebody in arrears and then collect that money.
Right.
That collected money in arrears is worth more.
Yeah, because it gains interest.
But the state gives more money for collecting arrears.
Right. I mean, it's definitely a business for the government, which makes me say the same thing I always say about government. Why do we need sometimes? Well, I'm the perfect example. I faithfully paid child support in the first 2 years of my divorce. The minute that I got called into the system, I was called upon to say that I was behind all the time, so I proved it right to the nth dollar. By the time you got to the end of the 2-year period, I overpaid $100. Right. This was on my own without the government. Right. But we're going to do it anyway. So they took it over, and what did they do? They created a debt ledger for me.
Right.
They raised my child support, and my debt ledger was beyond my income level that I could handle at that time. So there's no reason why, in my opinion, to feed a system that's already going to absolutely take your money. It's going to confiscate your money.
Right.
I don't see the purpose in all of that. But where's the advantage in your children getting money from the parent when the parent can use it for a drink at the bar.
Well, that actually comes up a lot, and in fact on Facebook you see a lot of posts, about how the child support, you should have a debit. Don't you think people should have a debit card so that there's a record? And I know a lot of people come to me and say, I'm giving I'll say my ex-wife because it is more common, but it definitely works the other way. I just want to say that disclaimer.
Sure.
But just for simplicity purposes, they'll come to me and they'll say, Gary, I give my wife $400, $500 a week. My kids don't have new shoes. They don't have this. They tell the kids they have no money. But my ex-wife, who is barely working, is driving a brand new Cadillac. And then they go, I'm going to go to court and demand that I know where that money went. And the answer is always the same in court. You have no right to know where that money went. How ridiculous is that?
Of course.
What is wrong with saying I want to know where the money went? If it's in the child's best interest, shouldn't you know?
You see, you don't have a relationship with your child anymore once that happens through divorce. The custodial parent has the power base and including the narratives and all the language and how it's handled in court. You're just a non-parent.
Well, let me explain something. If you're giving something to your child voluntarily, if they come to you and says, "Hey, Dad, I need a new pair of sneakers," and you give it to them, that's coming from, and you enjoy it because they know it came from you. You work for it. When you take that step out, and now you take your money and you give it to your ex, and then your ex buys, guess what? The ex is now the one. Listen, it's an instinct. It's survival of the fittest. Like they always say for a dog, the dog won't bite the hand that feeds it, and that's how. I'm in the pet business, and that's how, you get a dog. If you're always the one you never will leave the food out. You give the dog, and that dog becomes dependent on you. Well, now what's happening? The child is dependent on that custodial parent. The other parent means nothing. Right. In fact, many times I've seen that they go to the non-custodial parent and say, "Hey, Dad, Mom, I need this. Can you do it? I have no," and the parent goes, "I give your mom all this money in child support. Let her use that." No, but Mom says it's not enough.
Right, yeah. So child support just has an extended leg then,
it's not, let me tell you, it is the worst feeling giving somebody, and again, I haven't done this, but people come to me, and they give so much money, and they're just treated like crap by their children. You know what? If my kids treat me like crap, they don't get a new Nintendo. They don't get to go to the movies on a weekend night. You lose that. It's just automatic
and as
payment.
a parent, you should have the right to be able to make that decision.
Absolutely.
You're actually sending a positive message, even though it looks like a negative message.
What happens if they don't see you? Shouldn't you be able to say, "Hey, you know what? My son or daughter is not coming to see me. I'm not going to give them that money."
How many times have you heard mothers say, and by the way, we're always going to use the example of mothers because it was 85% of the child support receivers are mothers.
But of course, it could be the other way. It's just as bad if it's the other way.
But they, I don't know if I'm not going to give him the kid this weekend because he didn't give me any money.
Right.
There's always a quid pro quo.
And that you're not allowed to do, though, right? I mean, they do it, and the courts don't enforce it. But God forbid you stop paying. And it should. It's just
holding access. It's crazy.
I absolutely think if you're paying child support and your child is being withheld, that child support should be cut off. You should not have to pay if you're not seeing your child.
Of course, that'll never happen, but it's a good idea.
It should not. I tell people don't do it. You know what? I tell people don't pay it. Go to court, and then don't go in front of a support magistrate. Take it up to the Supreme Court and argue that you're selectively enforcing the agreement, because that's exactly what they're doing. They'll say, "Well, we're going to enforce the money." Well, how come you're not enforcing the visitation schedule, the parenting schedule?
I like the term selective enforcement.
That's selective enforcement. And I would say, "Well, are you not enforcing it because I'm a man?" Right. I'm entitled to equal protection under the law. Right. You should enforce the two things evenly. But they have a smart way of doing this. What they do is they take you into a support magistrate. And when you bring up the other issues, that support magistrate says, "No, I am only here to discuss money."
Right.
Bullshit. Don't let them do it. Go to contempt and pull it all up to a higher court where they can encompass anything. Do not let them railroad you in to doing a bifurcated trial where it's just on money. The whole thing has to be looked at holistically.
You know what else happened, I guess you can say, in the last maybe 20 years with the real estate prices going up so far? The distributive aspect of divorce has caused the amount of money to be available to pay into our system, or the child support system, or just to be in court to pay for your divorce. More asset availability. The real estate prices have gone. So homeowners actually took a bigger hit when they got divorced.
Yeah, and it's also, the issue, and on the same thing, talking about homes, what happens is often the person who's the non-custodial parent who is paying, where are they going to live on Long Island with what they're left with?
How are you going to match
They're going to be left with no, and now when they get divorced, they always say, well, you have to give the kids enough because it has to even it out so they have a good place in the same standard of living.
Equal the standard of living.
Right.
There's another beauty.
And then what happens when they go to visit you? They go, well, Daddy's living in a basement.
I'm not going there.
I don't want to go there. The guy can't afford it. There's no Nintendo. There's no, fancy TVs. Well, the guy can't afford it. That's not fair either.
Right.
How is that fair?
There's an awful lot of things that are unfair. The system of pouring money into it to get the health and well-being of children never worked for me. And the statistics point out that there's an awful lot of dysfunction in the family of divorce. The children are coming out with a major
They do not come
negative
out well
effect.
from this.
They don't come out
I
well.
don't care if they get a great child support judgment. I won.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, kids are going to be screwed up. You want to make your kids win? Do shared custody. Take the money incentive out and work with your spouse. Forget about the guidelines. The guidelines are crap. They're
That's
ridiculous.
why, as a divorce mediator, I always say, what is it that you really need? Give me all the numbers you can. I create a budget for them. Now, how much do you really need?
But don't you think that the both parties would agree that? Well, first of all,
they usually do, and they always get joint custody.
Yeah, and you know and we said that the compliance rate, and this is proven in statistics.
Right.
If you come to an agreement together that both parties can live with, the compliance rate is over 90%. If you go to court and it's court ordered, the compliance rate is less than 50%.
That's right, always.
And you spend all this money on legal fees, and you're in court. It doesn't make sense. So honestly, any mother who's looking at this, because I'm going to say the mother, because they really hold they're in the driver's seat when it comes to this.
The custodial parent.
Well, but the mother going into court, they're in the driver's seat because they know if they push it, they're probably going to get custody. If they really care about their child and want to have a good life for their child, they'll come up with a reasonable agreement. Forget about these standards. People always call me, well, what would I get if I have 3 kids and I go to court and he makes this? What would I get? Forget, like you said, see what you need.
How much is in it for me? That's what we do. We on needs basis. We take the needs, we look at it budgetarily, we figure out what they actually have to spend in their lives, and we project a little bit. What kind of things might the kid be interested in? Oh, he likes football. Oh, is he going to be part of a football program? Let's collect a little money for his football program, and let's put that into the budgetary equation.
Right.
And it always works out. It's so simple.
It is.
The common sense of it all. I got one for you.
And the interesting thing is also, they talk about all the time how welfare creates a welfare class, and that people lose their incentive to go to work because they're on welfare. And they argue, and the Republicans, I think, more argue that we're not against helping people, but it's not helping them because they don't feel good about themselves because they're on welfare and the government's supporting them, and they take away their incentive. Well, guess what? Child support, it's welfare for moms.
That's right.
That's what it is. This nonsense with the kids. It's welfare for mothers.
To that point, years ago, and one of the major reasons why the child support situation got underway is that the mother was primarily home. They were need the sustenance for support for the children because they were almost always home. So that made sense to me, that if someone's home and they're not working, that they might need some economic supply. Now it's different. Now most women are out to work, and even if they're getting child support, they always say it's not enough. So what are we doing? We're depleting the non-custodial parent of his ability to pay. We're advancing money from the non-custodial parent to the custodial parent to try to get some economic equality out of this whole thing. Meanwhile, they're not home anyway. So if the father's out of the house because he's removed by his custodial, non-custodial position, and the custodial parent's out of the house because they're working, who's watching the kids? Right. There's not enough relationship any longer with even one of the parents in the home, which was the healthy thing to do back in the 50s.
Right. Well, listen, I agree
changed.
that if let's just say, because we use the same example, the husband says, look, I have a big career, I'm working, I want my ex to stay home and take care of this. Of course you should give money. Who would argue that?
Common sense.
Exactly.
I don't understand
so I don't want to say I'm against people paying.
Did you need a judge to tell you about this common sense?
But I am against having that be a number, and that every time this guy goes out and gets a job or the possibility to start a new business, they look back and they go, you know what? I'm going to be dragged back into court, and I'm going to have to pay another increase on the increase, but it can't go down. It's just really not. It's not fair.
This is something else that recently happened because the need to have this child support be paid got so bad that they went after on paternity issues. If you weren't the biological father and you were available, you become the available parent.
Still
There's
is,
some
right.
recent law.
Right.
How do you? And people don't believe me when I tell you this.
Well,
but
then
you could
they
not
go,
be
it's the best
related,
interest- yeah.
and you could not
If
have
you
a
acted as
relationship
the
with that way.
parent.
But if you were anywhere near that kid, there's somehow in the air somehow something they got caught
Right.
into the air somehow,
Right.
and now you get sucked into the vacuum of paying child support.
Right. Yeah,
and that's a reality. People don't realize that goes on.
No, it is.
Let's talk about the equity of it for a minute. If we were to apply, like we do in child support, as a mediator, we create a place that balances off the budgetary equation. But is that all we really need for children? I mean, is it all about the money?
Obviously, the way I feel and the way you feel, it should be about shared custody. And I know in Scandinavia, where the shared custody is the norm, and there's none of this battling over who's going to get custody because there's no money in it. So right off the bat, they don't even want to fight because there's no. And actually, let me tell you, when the amount, I think it's a set amount. I think it's $50 a week in Sweden that they get. Then the government puts in some money too. But it's a set amount. No matter what you make, it goes up every year by a percentage because of the cost of living. But the spouse, there's always going to be one spouse who makes less money, right? I mean, it's never going to be that just by chance they both make.
I heard that they work that out themselves.
Well,
is that true?
Right, but then there's an incentive. Let's just say, for example, the husband makes more money, the ex-husband makes more, the father makes more money than the wife. Well, the wife now has an incentive to be nice to daddy because you want the father to pay for all these extra things. If the mother is the breadwinner and makes more than the father, I'm not gonna piss off my ex because she's spending all this extra money for their vacations, because this is, like I said, this is instinct. This is innate behavior to take care of your children. We're born with this. It's been like this for thousands, tens of thousands of years.
How did it ever happen that this deadbeat got caught on so severely that it occupied the nation and the narrative to take away any power that we... Even the ability, I talk about power, it's actually just to try to get involved, just to be involved with the kids. It took it all away.
But Chris, how many times do you ever hear of a parent starving their kid to death? It's not that common.
No.
Poor people, rich people,
but
crazy people.
People are a hell of a lot more popular these days, and there's no specific reason for it.
You almost never hear of somebody starving their kid to death. It's our instinct to feed our offspring. Otherwise, as a society, we wouldn't live.
I don't understand how we went away from biology, but I mean, it was always my instinct to think that, I needed to take care. I'm a physically stronger person in my family, and I would need to take care of my wife. And my wife is taking care of my kids. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. 1, 2, 3.
And of course, there's exceptions, but we're looking at the broader, the broader picture. Of course, and those exceptions where somebody just says, I'm not paying, but usually when they don't want to pay, it's because they've been dragged through the court and destroyed by their ex so much that there's so much animosity, towards the other person. But we need to take all that fighting out of the system. But the courts feed on this; they thrive on this fighting. And like you said, when you go to court, what do? You spend 90% of the time fighting about money.
Right.
When do you ever say, I want them to spend this much time? It should be, you know what? You want to pay less, you have to spend more time with your kid. You're the father, you need to spend 50% of time with their kid.
If you're the father and you're outside and you're working and you don't have access to the children as often as you could, you can't live in that same environment anymore. What else have you got except your economic ability? Right. How you thrive, how you manage your life is based upon your appearance and your ability economically to get money. So when somebody tries to take that too, what the hell else have you got? You haven't got the kids, you haven't got the house, and now you don't have any money.
Exactly.
You haven't got anything. Right. And somehow this was okay.
Right. And then they wonder why these people then go to court screaming and saying stupid things, and they go, this person's crazy. Oh, who wouldn't? How did that not make you crazy?
Yeah. Well, they want, if you look at it from their perspective, wouldn't they want you to believe that, you're supposed to fall in line here. Right. You're a father. You're not supposed to. And by the way, it's been quoted by some judges saying, "Look, nothing's worse than seeing a father who wants to be involved with their kids." I forget what judge said that, but it's on record. But
so I think you punish the father if he doesn't want to see his kids. Make him pay more. If he doesn't want to me, you make it 50-50. If the father says I don't want to or I can't see my kids, you know what? Now you pay more money. Mm-hmm. There's a disincentive. You want to incentivize parents spending their time, and let me tell you, we'll have a lot better generation of kids growing up, rather than these kids that have all the money from the one partner, and none of the. And listen,
we already know that this situation goes bad with Uncle Daddy, as they say. So when father's removed, and now he's got this social condition that's outside.
Listen. The statistics are clear. They drug use. They date older men. They get into dysfunctional relationships. They of course get divorced.
We should say that nice and clear. See, the women who are without their father tend to be more promiscuous. We're talking about 13, 14, 15.
It's almost not it is going to happen.
Yeah, and you're seeing it. You're actually seeing it in the society
now. They do drugs.
Now.
They look for escapes.
And the boys are looking. They get into trouble. The juvenile delinquency rate is rising. And why is that happening? Because they're without the father. father. The father plays an extremely important part.
And look at the kids who are
and
raised
it doesn't
without their
have to be
mother,
equal
too.
in time, we should know.
Right.
It does not mean equal in time. So you can spend, a father can spend 25, 30% of his time with the kid, whereas the mother has 60 or 70, and the power base is properly still equal.
Yeah, it's all, listen, it's quality of time. I mean, they're spending time and then they're spending
And
time.
the
you
need
know.
may not be there to have
So,
the same amount of things.
It's doing stuff. But, you know, we should also say, look, imagine a child being raised without their mother, too. The issues that, you know, the
Absolutely.
boys have issues
Yeah.
with mommy issues and older women and not having that nurturing part. I mean, men and women are different. They need the both in their lives.
Gary, thanks very much. I appreciate that. Great job on the child support. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family that once was the cornerstone of our great American culture. And at FIT, you know we can't get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you very much for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.